Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So here we are at Kuruksetra, very peaceful place in Haryana, just less than 2 hours train journey from Delhi. We had our Kuruksetra coming in from Jaipur, coming into Delhi and getting out again to Kuruksetra. Our brief stopover in Delhi was incredibly full of harassing people. I'm saying incredibly after so many years in India, so it was pretty bad. But anyway, Kuruksetra is very peaceful, very nice, holy place. Practically coming out of Delhi all the way, there's no industry, nothing. This is in Haryana, this is a state which was previously part of Punjab. Now it's been separated and it's predominantly agricultural area. Very good soil all the way. It's just fields away from that ugra karma and ugra attitude of Delhi. Now there are two main areas here which are known as holy places. One is Brahma Sarovar. It's the big water tank where Krishna also came here and met the gopis. That's in Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto. And there is Yotishta, where the Bhagavad Gita was spoken. So we've just come today to the Brahma Sarovar and we're staying here. And tomorrow we'll go to the place of the Bhagavad Gita. Here, all around the lake, not all around, on one side there's a few ashrams, including one Gauriya Math, pretty sleepy place. We arrived, they were sleeping, they didn't want to get up to get the key to let us in the room, so we just stayed in some other place. There's plenty of free accommodation for sadhus, and they give out free food also, although we missed that. Plenty of sadhus here. It's on the circuit for the sadhus. They go from place to place. We saw just in the sun in the afternoon the clear winter sun, but not very warm. It was a cold breeze. The sadhus just lying out in the sun. They seemed to be pretty impressed by the fact that I took a bath, which even in the Kund, in the Sarovar, because even at 4 o'clock, which is supposed to be the hottest time of day, the water was incredibly cold, even though I had lots of mustard oil on. I thought I'd go for a little swim, but it turned out to be a very little swim, because it was so cold. Anyway, sadhus, they're all very happy to see us, calling us over. Jai Shri Ram, Hare Krishna, they're calling out to us. One sadhu was peacefully relaxing in the sun, lying down and listening to cinema music on his portable tape recorder, enjoying life in that way. Kuruksetra itself is a small town, as Prabhupada often pointed out, that it's a real place, it's not just some imaginary thing, that they make some allegory of the 5 Pandavas and the 5 senses. What is that? Kuruksetra is the body or some stupid thing. But there's a railway junction here. There's not much going on. The population's probably a little less than 1 lakh. It's a district town. It's a agricultural market town. There's a very minor railway junction, small branch line going on. The main line, Delhi to Punjab, that means Delhi to Amritsar, and also one line goes up to that branches, goes Delhi to Jammu. So trains going up to Jammu and Kashmir and Punjab, and of course Chandigarh, they all go through here. And that's about it. There's not much going on in the town. It's formerly part of Punjab. There's quite a few Sikhs out in this part of the world. There's a huge not huge, but for the size of the town, quite a large, beautiful Gurudwara in the town. In the ashram where we're staying, there's one Mr. Agrawal who is he's a retired bank officer who's overseeing the day-to-day running affairs of the ashram. So, he's quite happy to see us. He has a son in Dallas. He's also been to Dallas. So he knows the worldwide scope of our movement. Like other people who I've spoken to so far, he doesn't seem to know so much about the actual history or significance of the place, so I'm going to have to search out something to find out exactly all the stories according to the Puranas and Mahabharata and this and that. There's also a Jagannath Mandir here. It seems Jagannath, we seem to find him everywhere, even in the most unexpected places. The deities look quite old, very simply made up. Both Subhadra and Baladeva are white. They look as if they've been repainted recently. And Krishna's almost white. He's a very, very pale blue. Instead of their usual big smile, they've got a bit of a small pout on their face. Then in front of them there's Radha and Krishna deities and Kali deity. There wasn't anyone there at the temple who could have any idea of anything of what was going on, how all the deities are, where they're from. Just a few simple-looking women. It's one of those temples which has become a house. It's more like a house, even though there's a good temple there. As you can maybe hear in the background of this tape, there's some kind of light music. Doesn't sound so religious, but it's certainly not your heavy-duty rock and roll cinema music. Some woman singing. That's the constant background noise, not very transcendental. A lot of your village-type pilgrims come here also. There's a lot of people selling packets of puffed rice, real cheap stuff, for these people who don't have that much money to spend. One sadhu, just as I'm walking on the road, was with a big smile offered me chillam to be smoking. These sadhus are tough people. They're getting ready to camp out for the night. Just in a kind of half-covered little slots in the wall all around the Brahma Sarovar. They're all camping out there. Some of them have got just one blanket. It's cold. They're tough. Just being here and thinking how the Mahabharata war was fought here, Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita, and the relevance and the importance is just beginning to hit me, how important Krishna speaking Bhagavad Gita. What an important place this is. There isn't that much emphasis on knowledge of Bhagavad Gita around here nowadays. Now in the evening, around the Brahma Sarovas, there's some kind of pop version of Bhagavad Gita going over the loudspeakers. Some kind of funny pop music in the background. A man who doesn't know the shlokas properly, there's a lot of pronunciation mistakes, reading out the shlokas and speaking in Hindi translation very quickly. Rush reading through. A little earlier, a group of plainclothes policemen stopped me, saw me talking into a tape recorder. Thought it was something very suspicious when I explained what I was doing. He didn't seem to mind. And they said I was writing an article. Thought I might be some kind of a journalist, so a little suspicious there. Of course, they were probably young in the days of the emergency when foreigners weren't even allowed to speak to Indians without permission. This is also on the edge of the Punjab. Good bit of a Punjabi flavor here. I've said about that before. I see quite a lot of signs, shop names written up in Punjabi. So Punjab is a heavy place. There's a lot of terrorist violence here in Haryana also. So I guess they've got their reasons to be suspicious. That terrorist violence means the overspill from the Punjab. Punjabi terrorists are active in different parts of India also, especially in Haryana and up in UP. Anyway, getting back to that point about the significance of the place. Now that I'm here, I find it surprising that I've never been here after so many years in this part of the world. And it's so close to Delhi, it's just a short journey. It's surprising that more devotees don't come. Of course, Srila Prabhupada had big plans for Kuruksetra. He wanted to have a big Vaishnava university here to preach Bhagavad Gita as it is, from the Bhagavad Gita University of the place of Bhagavad Gita. Apparently, a couple of people have told us there is a small ISKCON outpost here. I don't know exactly what it is. We haven't been exactly able to find out or locate where it is. I remember the Chandigarh devotees telling me that they had some kind of something here. But it's worthwhile, as we're in Kuruksetra, and we're going to be writing about Kuruksetra for BTG, to remind the world community again, this was one of Srila Prabhupada's desires, which he very clearly expressed, that he wanted a big project here at Kuruksetra also. About 40 years ago, the central government made the arrangement by which you can now see all around this rover, this is called Paka Cats. It's not just mud, but there's cement, there's arrangement with platforms, so many things. Previously, there were a few ghats here and there which had been made by philanthropists. Most of it was just open around the edges. It was also bigger. At the time the central government renovated it, they enclosed the water in a smaller space. Previously it used to be coming out into where the present road is now, mid angles. The Sarova is about 14, its deepest 2 feet. Pretty soon there are signs of it beware. Water is quite deep because the vast majority of Indians don't know how to swim, nothing at all. This is the main center of sun worship in India, and when there are festivals connected with the sun, many people come. Just like recently there was Somavati Amavasya, in which many people came. If there's a solar eclipse, there's a huge crowd. 7 to 10 lakhs of people come. It's very auspicious to be here on the day of the solar eclipse. See that when Krishna and the Pandavas came to that. Our devotees come also on such a day. Usually they can distribute books and recite and everything else. Grateful thanks to Mr. Agarwal for providing huge, thick quilts to help us through the night. My tiny little, thin sleeping bag, which was good enough for the slight chill in Bombay, is enough for the cold here. One nice thing about it being so cold is that no one gets up early in the morning. From our point of view, that's good. There's no disturbance. It's wonderful to chant in the chilly morning hours, in the silence. Only later on, shortly before dawn, did the canny pop music type bhajans and tinny Bhagavad Gita recitals over the loudspeakers begin. Now I'm at the place where Krishna actually spoke the Bhagavad Gita. It's a very quiet little place right now. It's early in the morning. Just a few pilgrims coming. I managed to fulfill a long-time aspiration of sitting at the place where Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita and personally chanting all the Sanskrit verses of the Gita, which took me a little less than 2 hours. Just a few pilgrims came in. There's not that much to see or do. They come, they see the peepal tree, they see there's a few small temples, and there's inside a transparent, maybe glass or some kind of container, casement, there's Arjuna and Krishna statues on the chariot scene. A few tourists came. Some of them were doing some videoing. Not much life going on. People wake up late. They start moving around late in this cold season. One thing I've realized now is that Kuruksetra, that word Kshetra means a field, or not just one place, but a large area. As this book, The History of Kuruksetra, explains, it is a large area where people used to come for doing religious rites. Also, we can understand different places of the Mahabharata battle highlights. They're spread out over a few kilometers here and there. Obviously, the Kuruksetra war didn't just take place in one small area, but it was spread out over a huge area. One thing is that it's claimed that here Vyasa composed the Puranas, the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Mahabharata. That's also claimed at Naimisharanya. We've reported that in the Naimisharanya trip, reported that Vyasa compiled, and no doubt in Bhadrik Ashram the same thing is claimed also. So it may be all true, Vyasa can expand himself, or maybe it's not true of all places, or maybe he compiled some in some places. It's very difficult to ascertain this kind of thing. One point which comes to mind is that some soil geologists have analyzed the soil in the area of Kuruksetra, and they say it's not possible that it could have such a geological composition unless many thousands of gallons of blood had been spilled there sometime in the past. But as with the Dwaraka excavations, which are showing the ruins of a kingdom which had fallen in the sea some thousands of years ago, we don't care much for this, whether they scientifically prove or disprove all these things. Our evidence that Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita here is Vyasa himself in the Mahabharata. These materialistic people may, for their own satisfaction, make some kind of soil test or archaeological excavation, but we don't depend on their findings one way or the other. We depend on the words of the Shastra. We know Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita here. That's another interesting point, that the few English-speaking people here, including young, so-called modernized men, when you ask them anything, they say, yes, over there is the place where Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita some 5,000 years ago. They talk like this. They don't have that doubtfulness which we find so commonly associated with the modern, especially the modern or the so-called educated people, who would usually say, speak in terms or write in terms like this. It is said that Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita here, or it is supposed, but they just say it out like that. Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita there. They believe it. They may not have a very clear idea who Krishna is or what he spoke, but they're not so much polluted with that scholarly, pseudo-intellectual doubtfulness of Krishna. Seems to be a little pride here in their holy place, and there should be. Another cultural note, that this place is a little bit different from the rest of India, getting up towards Punjab, is that the women here, they don't wear saris, most of them, but they wear the kind of trouser suit that the Punjabi women do. So here we are at Ban Ganga. This is the place where on the 11th day of the Mahabharata war, Grandfather Bhishma, after being badly injured by Arjun's arrows, lying on the bed of arrows, said to Arjun, I'm reading this from a sign which is written here in English and Hindi. This is reading different shlokas from the Shanti Parva of the Mahabharata. O great Archer Arjun, my whole body is in terrible pain. Get me water to give it some relief, as you are the only one capable of righteously making available drinking water for me. You provide me water. Consequently, the great Arjuna fixed a shining, worshipped arrow, duly fitted with requisite instrument, to his bow and punctured the earth on the right of Bhishma. Then a fountain of cool water, fragrant and sweet like nectar, erupted from the earth. The great Arjuna quenched Bhishma's thirst with the cool water of the fountain. Bhishma awaited his death for 6 months here, and during this period, after the end of the Mahabharata war, narrated the Shanti Parva to Yudhishthira. Oh no, this is not a quote from the Shanti Parva. I'm not sure whether it is or not. This Ban Ganga is just a tiny village just off the main road, little agricultural village, surrounded by lush fields, well irrigated. The land is good and the people they're famous as being industrious. Now I can see they actually are. It's like in Bengal, the land's good, but the people are somehow or other, due to overpopulation or just being unorganized, they just don't get it together. But here, the land is prosperous. The people are together. They get it farmed nicely. Now here at Ban Ganga, there's a small pond, and there's 24-foot high, nicely painted, multicolored Hanuman deity. Open air, standing under a 4-pillared canopy. Of course, we don't really believe in just having open air statues. The real thing is to do puja in a temple properly, not expose the deity to the element. Anyway, Hanuman's here, for better or for worse. There's lots of parrots here, beautiful, bright green, flying around, making their screeching. A similarly bright sadhu, that means his orange cloth is as bright as the parakeets are green, is just sitting peacefully with his arms folded on a cot in the sun. There's a few small temples all around. Very peaceful, nice place. Ban Ganga literally means, Ban means arrow, and Ganga means Ganga. So Arjun brought the Ganga for Bhishma Dev here. One of the small temples here is one of Ban Ganga, deity of Ganga Devi. Previously I was describing about Kuruksetra, what's here, that it's an agricultural town, a pilgrimage place. One other point which gives the town little importance is that it has a university, which I just read in this book. It's obviously not a very prominent university. District town means that many people will be engaged in all kinds of administrative work. Typical overloaded government, local government of India. It's beautiful, lush, flat land. There seems to be a wind constantly blowing, as it often does, over this flat kind of land. Although often that's welcome in the hot climate, but now it's cold. It's not so welcome. All in all, there's really not that much to see or do at Ganga, although for a few days, a few thousand years ago, it was a place of intense activity. Now, having not brought Mahabharata or Srimad Bhagavatam to read the relevant sections from, there's really not that much to do. So like the other handful of pilgrims who are wandering in, I'll be wandering out again quite quickly. We can judge how rustic this place is, Ganga, by the fact that 3 villagers came up to me and wanted to hear the playback of me speaking into the tape recorder. There was some fascination for them. Now, 10 or 15 years ago in India, that would have happened every time you did any recording publicly. Nowadays, that's quite unusual. India's now got so much of it. Technology like that. To give another idea how small Ganga is, there's not even a single shop here of any description. There's about 15 families staying here, 1 or 2 ashrams, and that's about it. I came here by Tonga, horse-cart. That's gone away now. I just asked a local farmer, young man, how to get out of here, how to go anywhere else. So he replied to me in broken English, which I was very surprised. It seems that the education system here is quite good. Anyway, it's kilometers walk to the nearest place where anything stops. So, Hare Krishna. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur one time said, very amazing thing, that only less intelligent people think Vrindavan to be the most important place. Because Kuruksetra is the most important place. And then he explained that because the feelings of the gopis and Krishna when they met here was that it was the most exquisite. This is very, very high subject matter. Because the gopis, after such a long time, they had again got Krishna. But they still hadn't quite got him. He was in front of them, but they didn't have him as they had before. That verse is there in Chaitanya Charitamrita, which explains that. I still couldn't find out why the Brahma Sarovar is called the Brahma Sarovar. Everyone says it's made by Brahma, but when and why, no one can give any clear idea. Sorry. On the whole, we found the people of Kuruksetra to be very well behaved, very appreciative of our ISKCON devotees, and religiously inclined, quite cultured people. I'd heard that Haryana people were pious. I'd never been to Haryana before, now I found that out. Just one note, as we're leaving Kuruksetra early in the morning, in the pre-dawn darkness, taking rickshaws through this small town to get to the station. It's very nice, the sound of different vachans and prayers being chanted from different temples over the loudspeakers, and also from the Gurudwara. Hare Krishna. Kuruksetra shloks are there in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela, Volume 1, page 37, and from page 52 on a few. In the Vaishnav Abhidhan, which is a pretty authoritative, fairly authoritative book, at least on this matter we can take its authority. It's a book compiled in Bengali. It is stated that at Kuruksetra there are 365 tirthas. That is spread all out over a large area. You could do a whole tour of the place. It's a very, very, very big area with so many holy incidents which took place there. It's a little different to Vrindavan, which also has so many tirthas. In fact, it's said that all tirthas are present in Vrindavan. The mood is a little different because Kuruksetra is also known as Dharmakshetra. So it appears that most of these tirthas, they are in relation to dharma. In other words, dharma, artha, kama, moksha, to karma-kandiyo practices, especially those for elevation to the heavenly planets, and so on and so forth. In the Chaitanya Bhagavat Adi Kanda, chapter 9, text 119, it is mentioned in the list of holy places visited by Lord Nityananda Prabhu before he met with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Kuruksetra is one of them. Now, at the Gauriya Math in Kuruksetra, it has been stated in one diorama, is written there in Hindi, that in the year 1614, according to the English calendar, the Christian calendar, in August there was a solar eclipse, and at that time Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees came. Now I asked the resident leading devotee there what the reference to this is in any Shastra. He told me that it was there in Chaitanya Bhagavat and Chaitanya Charitamrita. I don't find any reference, nor is it mentioned in the Vaishnav Abhidhan. Therefore, even though they've given such an exact reference, without any backup, I wouldn't like to state that to be true. It may be there in some other, these are the two main biographies of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There are several other biographies and biographical works. It may be stated in one of those, but as it's not mentioned in Vaishnav Abhidhan, I would tend to not